Cubitt.
Hello, good afternoon everyone. Thanks for being with us. We have probably some listeners online and we also have some listeners here in the studios and the Amisha. Thank you for being with us. We are on the fourth show of Sound in the Archive, a radio show run by Charlie Clark and myself, Henriette Gilroy. And today we host two artists in London, PASCALE and TIFFANY Wellington. Hello, both of you. So today, as with all the other shows, we will perform those two emerging artists who work with speech and sound, and they will both present work in sound and text inspired by material in Cubitt's archive. Thank you for being with us.
So before we begin, I'm just going to give a little information about PASCALE and TIFFANY. So PASCALE is an artist curator based in London. Jazzia Breitbart's robotic archive is used as a guide for her research into histories of culture. Her material practice deals with objects whose provenance can be traced back to institutions. PASCALE holds a BA from the Cubitt Institute of Art and She has participated in residencies at the Bauhaus Universität and at l'École Internationale de Théâtre. Her work is featured in the Player magazine, Tate Exet, Art and Education, and Stichting Kunstlich. Her curatorial projects include Belly Talk at Collective Ending, The Donsto at Studio 59, Slingshot at Filet, and Spoil Conduct at Available Art. Thank you for being here, PASCALE. And I'm just going to read Tiffany's bio. Tiffany Wellington lives, works, and loves in London. Wellington weaves webs of fact and fiction. Their work focuses on themes of false narratives, true identities, and identity. Given time, it gains and forgets meaning, creating alternating tales that separate them into various timelines of self-discovery. Interlacing photography, sound, performance, and sculpture through the assertion of their own personal experiences, they provide certain truths that lie parallel with the falsehoods provided in the narration. They are not creating a lie, but the lie can be seen within. Wellington holds an MFA Fine Art at Goldsmiths, a BA Painting at Conservatoire in Belgium, and a BA Fine Art at Falmouth University. Thanks for joining us, Tiff. And now we're going to hand over to PASCALE, who's going to read for us her piece that she's going to
Thank you, Jesus. I know that He is able. Words to say. You know what I'm saying? Hey, hey, hey.
Sensuality exercise number 2 from The Joy of Sex, 1972. Remove the clothes on the upper part of your body. Sit down at the table again, and with your eyes closed, take items like the fan and the feather and the towel, and one by one, softly caress your body in this order. Take the item in your right hand. Start with the tips of the fingers on the left hand, and draw the fur, the feather, the towel, or whatever. Very slowly up the thigh, the wrist, the inside of the arm to the neck, the left cheek, the forehead, across the eyelids, the nose, right cheek, mouth, neck, down to the shoulders, across the chest, over and under the breasts, and back to the table. Sit back and relax, still with your eyes closed, and memorize the sensations you just stimulated in your body. With the next item, reverse the hands that hold and strokes. You will know you are doing this exercise properly when your skin begins to tingle and feel the imaginary imprint of the item. In 2003, Carol Bovey and Charles Raymond had an exhibition in Cubitt, The Joy of Sex. Bovey made a series of shelves holding anachronistic books and objects. One of the books was Knots, by Scottish psychoanalyst R.D. Laing in 1971. It exposes daily misunderstandings through fast-paced dialogues of cyclical failures, which result in a knotted exchange. I don't want you to know more about me. Why? I shouldn't have to tell you. If you don't tell me, I can't give you what you want. How do you know what I want? I don't know unless you tell me more about me. I don't want you to know more about me. Why? I shouldn't have to tell you. If you don't tell me, I can't give you what you want. How do you know what I want? I don't unless you tell me more about me. I am not entitled to what I have. Therefore, everything I have is stolen. Because I'm not entitled to it. Because I've stolen it. Therefore, I'm not entitled to what I have. Therefore, everything I have is stolen. Because I'm not entitled to it. Because I've stolen it. Therefore, this is thinking of you. A phrase borrowed from the title of a Cubitt exhibition in 2008 of Boris Boris. Cubitt Gallery and Studios, 8 Angel News, London, N1, 9HH. In 2005, Gustav Metzger exhibited at Cubitt with the exhibition Eichmann and the Angel. In the centre stood a replica of the bulletproof box in which Adolf Eichmann, the engineer of the Holocaust, received the news of his execution in 1961. On the side was a conveyor, where the viewer was invited to place a newspaper which got crumpled and crashed onto the feet of the Angelus Novus, a replication of the full clay painting pinned to the wall. The Angelus Novus was owned by Walter Benjamin. In 1942, he wrote about it. The clay painting named Angelus Novus shows an angel looking as though he is about to move away from something he is fixedly contemplating. His eyes are staring, his mouth is open, his wings are spread. This is how one pictures the angel of history. His face is turned toward the past, where we perceive a chain of events and sees one single catastrophe which keeps piling wreckage and hulls it in front of its feet. The angel would like to stay, awaken the dead, and make whole what has been smashed. But a storm is blowing in from paradise. It has got caught in his wings with such violence that the angel can no longer close them. The storm irresistibly propels him into the future to which his back is turned, while the pile of debris before him grows skyward. This storm is what we call progress. End quote. This text is a part of Illuminations, which was edited by Hannah Arendt, who also wrote Icon in Jerusalem, a report on the banality of evil in 1963, and how she witnessed his demise. In 2004, a political feeling of victim took place with various activities led by the International Group for Eruption. One member, Emma Hiddle, recalls the time that she was watching a video of Hannah Arendt being interviewed by Günter Grass in 1964, in which she says, "You commit political actions, and talking is one of them, but nobody knows what happens after those actions. And you can only take the challenge if you trust humanity." Not understanding the German, Hedditch asked her friend Suzanne Orbeck to translate it live. Orbeck is also known as No Bra, a German electronic musician who often performs with no bra. An excerpt from her song Munkhausen. "Hey, I'm going to have an exhibition here in 2 weeks. Really? I'm going to have a performance here in 3 weeks. I'm going to throw chairs around. I'm going to throw myself around. Then I'm going to cut myself 23 times. Really? I haven't had a shag in like 23 minutes. Really? I haven't had a job in like 10 years. Really? I used to live without electricity for 10 years. Really? I used to share a squat with Nina Hagen in Camden, and she used to make pizza out of dead cats. Really? I met David Blaine in Cocontasaia the other day. Oh yeah? Well, we used to hang out together in Brazil. Oh really? My uncle designed a Palace of Dawn in Brasilia. Really? My uncle designed the inner staircase. Really? My uncle's cock is like 12 inches long. Yeah, but my cock is like 14 inches long. Really? Mine too. But my cock was once amputated after a motorcycling accident. Well, I was once involved in a plane crash, but David Hasselhoff saved me from the ashes. Really? Well, I was cremated once. Really? I was born with only one leg. Really? You know, I think I fancy you. Really? So do I. In The Uncertainty Principle, Martin Herbert wrote about Kyle Bovey. Bovey's art is evidential of temporal elasticity, and its linear arrays of objects and books form the syntax of interrogative sentences. Things come unhitched in time, and they come together. This unhitching and communing raise questions of what precisely is the relationship between earth art and the fashion for signifiers of nature in the home in the late 60s and early 70s. Why was Cubism still being investigated a half-century after it was superseded by modernism's supposedly relentless forward flow? What does it say about the sexual revolution and sexual equality that a comic entitled Grope was being published 4 years after the 1960 Lady Chatterley case? End quote. In the archive, I found a review by Catherine O'Shea. Bovey's installation feels overwhelmingly aesthetic, but perhaps this is her point, that the progeny of all this free love and sexual politics is an obsession with style over substance. Castrated by commodification, all that remain for this politically impotent generation is to fetishize. This work is called Conversation with Georges Louis Bourges. Other books on the shelves include Revolution Notes, The Feminine Manifesto, Natural Parenthood, Reality Therapy, The Candy-Coloured Tangerine Flake Streamline Baby, Conversations with Georges Louis Bourges, War and Peace in the Global Village, An Introduction to Zen Buddhism, On the Bus, The Psychedelic Experience, The Man Who Walked Through Time, The Politics of Experience, Siddhartha, Soledad Brothers, The Prison Letters. In The Psychedelic Experience, a manual based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead of 1964, it describes different states of consciousness. Vibration level 3, states of consciousness +3, making the Mahdi, classical Satori, fusion with universal mind, union with God, being one of the creators of energy from the void in the Mars spiritual center above the head. Vibration level 768, states of consciousness -3, like +3, in that one is fused with other entities throughout the universe, but these are all bad, and oneself is bad and meaningless. This is the quintessence of evil, the deepest hell of which one can conceive. This can be an extremely high energy state lasting eternally, though by the planet-side clock one is there for only a few minutes. No hope in this state. No hope for escape from it. One is there forever. Brackets, see the cosmic computer write-up in the chapter entitled The Guided Tour of Hell. In 1941, Georges Louis Bourges wrote the Library of Babel, The short story imagines a universe as an infinite library. The allegory describes an archive in which every possible book has been written, given the limited alphabet. Some books don't make sense given the random arrangement of letters. This leads to quests to find transcendental meanings of life in the tomes that by chance may reveal fundamental truths. Borges wrote, "The library will endure, it is the universe. As for us, everything has not been written, we are not turning into phantoms. We walk the corridors, searching the shelves and rearranging them, looking for lines of meaning amid leagues of cacophony and incoherence, reading the history of the past and of our future, collecting our thoughts and collecting the thoughts of others, and every so often glimpsing mirrors in which we may recognize creatures of the information." Herbert has said, Bovey precariously finds meaning through the meaninglessness. I want to bring in the philosopher Jan Vervoort, a tutor of mine from the Pietsvaart in Rotterdam, who read his essay Exhaustion and Exuberance at Cubitt on the 18th of June 2008. In it, Vervoort describes how creatives are pressured to perform their work in always being ready to perform small artistic and intellectual miracles on a daily basis. These miracles contribute to a currency of exchanging information. Art has become research and intelligence has become capital. This generates a behavior of the artist as hyper-performativity. He questions, quote, "When do we commit to perform ourselves? When do we commit to perform of our own free will? And when is our commitment elicited under false pretenses to enforce the ideology of high performance and boost someone else's profits? How can we tell the difference? And who is there to blame if we choose to exploit ourselves?" End quote. Although information exchange is generative, the conditions of the artist's agency is unsustainable as they are imposed upon them, not devised by them. By defying this pressure to perform themselves, artists can propose an art economy that is more inclusive and less individualistic. How can we defy this? To counter competitiveness, Vervoort proposes an anti-performance. Quote, "Should we then not rather look for more subtle ways of performing dissent? What silent but effective forms of non-alignment, non-compliance, uncooperativeness, reluctance, reticence, weariness, or unwillingness do we find in everyday life?" This refusal to comply is to rest, to radically take care of yourself. The word rest stems from old slang, to be in rust, meaning out of work. To feel rusty is to feel stiff or out of practice. The original meaning has over time come to have a negative connotation of being not enough. The chemical reaction of rust on metal also has a contradiction to it. People put faith in metal for its strength. The maintenance of prisons, weapons, tools, and appliances causes such anxiety because the material is ultimately fragile. It has a drive to naturally fall apart, to undo itself in a queer way of having a willingness to fail. Rest is the name of an initiative created by the Duende Collective in Rotterdam in the mid-1990s. They described it as considering how not a single aspect of our culture is more meaningful or important than any other. She investigates different points of views, blows up what seems to be too small, lights what has been in the dark. Rest does not want to have the final word. Therefore, she creates spaces for other words. She invites cooperators who are given the space to show their motives, their drive. During his time at rest, Arno van Roosmalen found the shower in Duende to be his thinking place. The London-based artist Peter Fillingham witnessed this whilst at Duende and went on to collaborate with Jos van der Pol and Lisbeth Bick, another one of my tutors from the Pietsvaart, who founded Duende, to create an exact replica of this shower in Cubitt in 1995. A review found in the archives by Sasha Craddock. The show is ordinary but nonetheless a welcome sight. The artists who have studios upstairs can now make themselves a cup of Dutch coffee. The piece raises interesting questions about how far art has to go in order to be convincing. Jos and Lisbeth also replicated the Duende kitchen in Cubitt. They said the kitchen piece is about possibilities, shared potential, the society of artists, how they live, with whom they live and socialize. It is about differences and sameness. It is fundamental, simple, unromantic, fake, a copy, non-photographic and symbolic. It is a three-dimensional plastic representation, a film or theatre set, non-real. The original private space and its context will be enlarged. An imaginary line is created between the original kitchen and the kitchen piece. In another review of the archive of the kitchen, it says, "It sounds hokey, but it's affecting. You can make yourself a cup of coffee." This imaginary line between the Netherlands and London through Cubitt has been a wonderful surprise for me. As my personal and artistic life straddles these two places, I was excited to see how deep this connection is, like how Emily Pethick, who is now central to the Rijksacademy and the Dutch Art Institute, experimented with curation through the curator's bursary. She initiated a political feeling, I hope so, and the joy of sex, which have occurred in earlier loops. The Berlin-based Honeysuckle Company was born at the same time as Duende in 1995. They made this statement: Honeysuckle sees itself as a self-sufficient community in the sense of an almost dying species which is working on its own utopia. It does not want to go up because up equals down at the same time. The goal to achieve is a holistic life form. Stefan Kalmer was a curator at Cubitt. At a similar time to Pethick, he initiated an exhibition of honeysuckle at Cubitt, and a decade earlier curated Just Do It, a show with little to no art in it. A review of the archive. Do what exactly? The corporeal slogan suggests the attitude of all concerned, but the intervention slogan suggests the attitude of all concerned. But the interventions are so minimal that they initially go unnoticed. There are a few scruff marks on the floor, a false wool, and some coloured pastel doodles, which ramble the length of another. At the private view, the discernible lack of art barely seemed to matter until the beer ran out. With the title, Just Do It, Kalmar had ambitiously hoped for Nike sponsorship. Kalmar was met with this response: Dear Mr. Gallery, thank you for your recent letter regarding the possibility of sponsorship. As you can imagine, we receive many similar requests, but cannot, however, meet all requests simply because of budgetary considerations. This means, unfortunately, that we are unable to help you on this occasion. I realize that this will be a disappointment to you, but I could stress that Nike would like to support all deserving applications if resources permitted. May I wish you the very best of luck for the future. Yours sincerely, Nike UK Limited. Kalmar's exhibition Without Art, The Cloned Kitchen and the Shower, Bovey Finding Meaning in Meaninglessness, Jan Vervoort's Silent Descent. Here are images from the 2001 contract recording the state of the building when Cubitt moved in. I want to end by looking closely at these walls, which have witnessed so much collective joy throughout the years.
Cubitt community.
Thank you so much, Pascal. That was great. That was a really incredible illustrated and audio tour of some of Cubitt's past shows. Now, before we move on to Tiff's piece, I just want to ask you a couple of questions about your piece. So firstly, obviously there's so much to see in Cubitt's archive and it's all really interesting and really rich. So firstly, what drew you to these shows specifically, and then also to these images? Because there seems to be some kind of tie between them, but if you could explain that, that would be great.
Yeah, I think the first time I came to the archives, I was thinking thematically, like, what sort of thing do I want to focus on? And then with all of that research, I kind of threw it in the bin and wanted to embrace the randomness of the archive. And the next time I came, really just picked boxes at random and had a collection of things which like piqued my interest, and had no idea what the end form was. So it's more like finding connections between random coordinates, and in that some poetry can be found.
Yeah, it was really impressive, the links that seemed to form naturally between all these things. And you reference like fact and fiction in your own practice and work, but it was interesting how you also wove in the personal. It seemed like you had some really explicit personal links with the archive and the artists in it. Is that something that you reflected on for your own work? Did you find it interesting to kind of draw in your own tutors and collaborate with them in this kind of distance way?
Yeah, well, I guess since moving back to London from Holland, I guess I'm just really reflecting on the relationship between these two cities. I was super shocked to see that my tutors had worked here, because I kind of know them in a kind of Dutch German context. So I don't quite know what the question. Right, yeah.
No, that's fine. That's fine. No, it's just I knew a bit that you had personal connections with these people, but it was interesting the kind of characters that you had in the text. Coming back to the fact and the fiction, sometimes it seemed like it was you, but then there was also some kind of speech in the text that had this kind of unclear narrator.
Yeah, I guess like a side project which we briefly spoke about, which is this like hopefully one day book on another archive I work in. I'm really like the narrator in which like controls what is like fictional and what is non-fictional. So I'm finding it hard to answer that question, because that tone of voice is like really exciting for me and like unknown. So yeah.
Great, I'm excited to chat more about this in a little bit, but for now we're going to hand over to Tiff, who's going to perform her sound piece for us.
Cubitt
While Tiff is preparing, I still have a little question for you, Pascal. Thank you very much, first of all. And it's more of a comment, actually. I think it's quite interesting because what you did with the archive is, I would like to put it in link with the show Just Do It that you also mentioned, because in that show there were plenty of minimal interventions that went unnoticed. And I think in your work too, also with the photo essay, it's like one big collage that actually you really need to listen, because otherwise things goes unnoticed. And I really love that in your work. And it reminds me also a bit of the question of the gallery and versus the archive, and when does one ends and when begins the other. So yeah, I don't know if you want to comment on that or not, but
I guess the only thing I'd want to add is like in terms of the structure and what this like minimal intervention, I guess I took this thinking and looping, which was the title of one of the exhibitions, as like a method. And this idea that with each rotation you can just like keep returning to something and add a little bit more and add a little bit more, and it's really subtle, and it's it can be moving when you return to something. It's like I recognize this and I have more confidence now, you know.
Yeah, great.
So yeah,
that's also a work in progress with a written process, I suppose, like the way of now you really being in a writer almost, especially for the piece. But thanks, yeah, we will speak about it in a bit. Thank you, Pascal. And now let's go over to Tiffany. Thank you.
temporary euphoria.
Or a release.
Yeah, especially if you constantly gotta work and do things that you might not want to do. That's like temporary happiness real quick.
It's an escape.
And I make music about that because I feel like it gets to a point where you live so much of your life in that state because you work so damn much. It's been years and I've been doing the same shit.
Motherfuckers like to use that word toxic. That's the internet word that people like to attach to shit.
I don't think it's an internet word, I think it's a real word that really means something.
Temporary euphoria.
Motherfuckers like, that's the new shit though. Motherfuckers like using that word.
Toxic's been around for 5 centuries.
It's like I'm out this motherfucker for a little bit when we bullshit.
It's an escape.
That's how I feel about it.
Shakespeare used it.
That's a Twitter word.
Taming of the Shrew.
Anything that doesn't apply to you, feel me?
Yeah,
Rainbows and butterflies.
I fuck around, drink and bullshit.
They gonna be like, oh, it's toxic. You
chicks and pop some E and bullshit.
But if you sing naturally, people gonna want you to make some shit that's
It's like
romantic or
fucking
sweet.
Escape.
So if you sing some real shit, people are like, oh, it's toxic. That's some real shit.
Honestly. Truthfully.
Okay, I get that.
I feel like I know I gotta
maybe
wake up in the morning go to work.
Maybe
So let me
it's
bullshit.
like
Yeah, shit, I think what come with this shit is it's like reality times 10. Every year we feel like 10 years. As far as the people that you meet, the places that you go.
Temporary euphoria.
Or a release.
So it's because of that, naturally I'm gonna approach it a little more in retrospect, and it might come out harsh, but I think it's just more honest. Let's just keep that shit honest, fuck it.
What purpose do your vices serve in your life?
From the time Jazzy T throw me CD in the trash. Blackbird. Whoa. 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 Big bad voice pan version. Pussy cause a disturbance. 5-0 them incursion. Wagwan bourbon. Scotch, Guinness and bourbon. Splash up me here with the Burman. Touching at the street. What a blood cleat. Bad mind from some merman. Bet say you steer name Urban. I can't bet say you steer name Urban. Bet say you steer name Urban. I can't bet say you steer name Urban. Bet say you steer name Urban. I can't bet say you steer name Urban. Bet say you steer name Urban. I can't bet say you steer name Poppy the Earth.
You in H and M in the urban section. We in section A, space substation. Not from round here, friend, sky direction. Pink moon, Ad Astra, red sun. My fabric is cut from a different cloth. Your love puts it on just to take it off. Take my hats, make kicks, your shit so soft. You do what you can, we do what we want. Big beats, big groove, light feet, big shoes, spaceships, big moves. All us, not you. Don't discuss reviews, make songs, not news. We hear their views, don't care. All true. This is a love song from us to loved ones. Kingston, Poland, give thanks. London, big breaks, amen. Dancehall, say when, say less, do more. Alien, encore.
Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire. Faster than Fanny, keep me warm. Down at Accra, that's where me gone. Then back at Kingston, that's where me born. Full up a weed head and eagle arms. Keep your arm, keep your calm. Try to reach me, you need bigger arms. Try to reach me, you need bigger arms. I made you drop, I made you drip. I made you what? I made you if. Banana leaf, make a split. Light it up. Take a hit, count to 5, maybe 6. You were live, what made you dip? Sight a alien, take a pic. Call your dogs, call your ticks. Yeah, blood club, boy.
Amongst few. Government. Just get the weed from Epicon. Link time car Barbican. Up to gal we American. Run the place like Elephant Man. take time like Skeleton. Me never forward from London. Son of David Rodigan. Run the place like Elephant Man. She's
rich and hot like any con man. Gun pan belly DMX stop man. Ride round town pan me little scooter van. Run the place like Elephant Man. Go Waterhouse, go link War 21. Bust out your jelly like coconut man. Left red and white like polka dot man. Run the place like Elephant Man.
touching at the street, man, a icon. Girl inna me car, girl inna me van. Coulda black girl, coulda white one. Run the street like Elephant Man. Big bright link pa me right hand. Watch your Rolex pa me left one. Big gold chain pa me chest done. Run the place like Elephant Man.
Get some thick hot girl like Steph London. Jump on pan her like me a Spider-Man. Spread it out wide, make it get wider and run the place like Elephant Man. Drink a one dragon stout and water and this elephant you get a big brata and cup on the hill go link me big data palm. Run the place like Elephant Man.
Enemy, you kick all. No massa enemy. With the girl them say, God tell I just love you, giga. 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 Mind for me, baby. I know me love you so much. Take your time, me not in a no rush. And if you tell me look, but don't touch. Me put my hand them on my side. Shawty sing her for me with a knife. She me hug up. She say me feel sweet like a donut. So if you see a text and say she a go strangle me next, so what? I know nothing that. Oh, you boxer. No massa enemy. You dumper. No massa enemy. You kick all. No massa enemy. The girl them say, God tell I just love you, giga. 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 When I ride Phantom and I'm me teddy bear. And when me see Maga girl, me say coulda Dahlia. Me love black girl and me love white girl. All girl with it like Alia. Me nah box down a girl all when she a news carrier. Today for you, but I feel me tomorrow. I pay love in a slim body. Me can't let see a diddy daddy. You boxer. No massa enemy. You dumper. No massa enemy. You kick all. No massa enemy. The girl them say, God tell I just love you, giga. I just love you, giga. I just love you, giga. I just love you, giga.
Yo, I'ma slap one in your face. What do you?
Me no take intimidation, girl. For me and the good boy, me no fear, man. And me we make to live up on this station. Combo wall, come and up your mother. Kill say your bad take for me bank robber. Who boots up each eye this and dada. You bright on your face, do you think like grabber? Don't make me go a dead of your gobbling fagger. When me say ready, you can't say you can't bother. The chatty business, me left that to ragga. So me rise up the thing, them well longer than a ladder. Cause me no in a chatting, no yapping, no flipping, no flapping. Me strapping, fi clapping, me last them fi chopping. Me tricking, me chopping, the rifle them whopping. Him run but them dropping, him choking, him gapping. People are run out, but what happened? Them run back inside when more shots start attacking. They K long like wicked, and when that start batting them about Jesus Christ, Holy Ghost could not block him. Me a real bad man, me a tell the pussy them again, me no pretend. I me no bad alone from the weekend. Say them a chat about them gonna beat them. How I do them? Me a real bad man, me a tell the pussy them again, me no pretend. From inna the beginning till the world end. Some boy young go bad in front of them girlfriend. But me no soft like cherry. This a no cartoon and no Tom and no Jerry. Me gal Sheba the criminal secretary. Make the pin touch the wings, man they go a cemetery. The pin me a talk nothing a no blackberry. That the firing pin we in a the blackberry top. Boy dress up in a black February. This mean a Christmas, nothing a merry. Come me no in a chatting, no yapping, no flipping, no flapping. Me strapping fi clapping, me last them fi chopping. Me trick him, me chop him. The rifle them whapping him run, but them dropping him, choking him, gapping. People a run out, but what happened? What happened? Them run back inside when more shots start attacking. The K long like wicked, and when that start batting, them about Jesus Christ, Holy Ghost could not block him. Me a real bad man, me a tell the pussy them again, me no pretend. I mean no bad alone pon the weekend. Say them a chat about them gyal a beat them. How I do them? Me a real bad man, me a tell the pussy them again, me no pretend. From inna the beginning till the world end. Some boy young go bad in front of them girlfriend. Me a real bad man, me a tell the pussy them again, me no pretend. I mean no bad alone pon the weekend. Say them a chat about them gyal a beat them. How I do them? Me a real bad man, me a tell the pussy them again, me no pretend. From inna the beginning till the world end. Some boy young go bad in front of them girlfriend. Come and up your mother. He'll say your bad tip on me bank robber. Two boots of each eye, this is landada. You bright on your face till you think like gabba. Don't make me go a dead of your goggling fagger. When me say ready, you can't say you can't bother. The chatty business, me left that to rather. So me rise up the thing, them well longer than a ladder. Come me no in a chatting, no yapping, no flipping, no flapping. Me strapping, fi clapping, me last them fi chopping. Me trick him, me chop him. The rifle them whapping, him run but them dropping, him choking, him gapping. People are run out, but what happened? What happened? Them run back inside when more shots start attacking. The K long like wicked, and when that start batting, them about Jesus Christ, Holy Ghost could not block him. Me a real bad man, me a tell the pussy them again, me no pretend. I mean no bad alone pon the weekend. Say them a chat about them gyal a beat them. How I do them? Me a real bad man, me a tell the pussy them again, me no pretend. From inna the beginning till the world end. Some boy young go bad in front of them girlfriend.
الحلو على المر حارة الحط في خوف في حب في فيروس كح في على الحلو على المر على الحارة الحط في خوف حب في فيروس كح.
انا اصلا كل اشي ببلش بس ينتهي راح اشرب لا انعمي وافرح لا انشوي على النار. هادي بشار فاني مش غدار دافي ريح بالي خلي الباقي وين مش لاقي عذار. شو جاب لجاب وين راح لتاه الف سؤال وفي الجواب يخلعني عالبال. انا اصلا جاد وجاد فيش عتاب في شباب في رياح في هواء يشيل فيل عن طريق هروب مريخ.
في جواب فيش عتاب شو جاب لجاب وين راح لتاه 1000 سؤال وفي الجواب يخلعني عالبال أنا أصلا جاف وجاب فيش عتاب في شباب في رياح في هواء يشيل في عن طريق هروب مريخ وين أروح وين أسيح فيش مثال ولا شبيه في مجال أعيد تنسيق رفوف السين في مجال أعيد تنسيق رفوف السين آسف مسحة تقيل آسف مسحة تقيل أنا آسف مسحة تقيل آسف مسحة تقيل شت آسف مسحة آسف مسحة تقيل للغندور للدلاش للي شهد للي شاف للثبات في شيطان في ملاك في حياة في ممات لسه شاب لسه شاهد على الحلال أرض سماء اختلاف ارتفاع الهواء عالي ملاك راح أستأذن أروح نضارة بغوص لتحت بشوف عالجوه والعظام لما تدوب بالعلاج اوهموك منحوس كل اسلوب سخيف عالسريع بصيب مش عالبطيء بطيء ارفع ايدك فريز حقق مستحيل من ولا اشي جد من ولا اشي هاد كله من ولا اشي شكله غثي شكله نسي ذكره فهمه قبل من قوم اجيب الباقي مش اساسي ذهبي نحاسي انا قاسي فقد احساسي كله وروح حس بدالي مقاسي فوق مقاسي بشاير راح كف خماسي دفع رباعي ما برازي احلف صافي بحلف صافي انا لابس نظاراتي عشان اشوف بس مش شايف ولا اشي مش شايف ولا للغندور للدلاش للي شاف للثبات في شيطان في ملاك في حياة في ممات لسه شاب لسه شاهد عن حدات أرض سماء اختلاف ارتفاع عالي ملاك راح أستأذن أروح راح أستأذن أروح راح أستأذن أروح أنا راح
Make your man call me daddy. He talk too much, he's too chatty. CEO, I'm savvy. Respect the bitch, I'm a maverick. Flexible, so elastic, but don't you dare bend the bitch backwards. Fuck a princess, I'm a king. Bow down and kiss on my ring. Being a bitch is my kink. What the fuck else did you think? Fuck a princess, I'm a king. Bow down and kiss on my ring. It's gonna hurt, it'll sting. Spitting up blood in the sink. I'm crazy, but you like that. I bite back, dances on your nightstand. Never forget I blossom in the moonlight. Screw eyes, glacier with the blue eyes. I'm terrified. I'm no Cinderella, but I like the shoes. Big glass platforms, bitch, I'm choosy. Long blue hair, blue as a bruise. Only trust a fella for some light amusement. I'm no prey, but I am pursued. Pray for me, not on the church's pews. No distraction could confuse me. Whiskey in my hip flask, nothing fruity. Fuck a princess, I'm a king. Bow down and kiss on my ring. Being a bitch is my kink. What the fuck else did you think? Fuck a princess, I'm a king. Bow down and kiss on my ring. It's gonna hurt, it'll sting. Spitting up blood in the sink. I'm crazy, but you like that. I bite back, dances on your nightstand. Never forget I blossom in the moonlight. Screw eyes, glacier with the blue eyes. I'm terrified. I'm crazy, but you like that. I bite back, dances on your nightstand. Never forget I blossom in the moonlight. Screw eyes, glacier with the blue eyes. I'm terrified. La la la, la la la, la la la, la la. I'm terrified. La la la, la la la, la la la. I'm terrified.
And we not deal with no corruption. And we not chat to no policeman. Not deal with no moderation. 24/7 we are born Babylon again. How we not deal with no corruption. How we not chat to no policeman. How we not deal with no moderation.
Babylon get weak, you know.
Policeman, and we not deal with no moderation. 24/7 we are on Babylon.
sound.
This a number one, this a number one, this a number one champion sound.
Kanye, where you at, blood?
UK, we about to get down. Who killing them in the UK? Everybody gonna say UK. Reluctantly, cause most of this press don't fuck with me. Estelle once said, tell me cool down, down. Don't act a fool now, now. Always act a fool, ow, ow. Ain't nothing new now, now. He crazy, I know what you're thinking. Rapping, I know what you're drinking. Rap singer, chain blinger. Holla at the next chick soon as you're blinking. What's your persona about this Americana? Rhymer, am I shallow? Cause all my clothes designer. Dress smart like a London bloke. Before he speak, his soup he spoke. And you thought he was cute before. Look at this peacoat, tell me he's broke. And I know you ain't into all that. I heard your lyrics, I feel your spirit. But I still talk that cat ass. Cause a lot of wags wanna hear it. And I'm feeling like Mike at his baddest. Like the pimps at the Gladys. And I know they love it, so they here with all that rubbish.
Would you be my lover? Would you be mine? Would you be my lover? Would you be mine? Would you be my lover? Would you be my American boy? American boy. La 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 la.
This a number one, 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 this a number one champion sound. Sound, yeah, Estelle, we about to get down. We're the hottest in the world right now, just touched down in London town. Bet they give me a pound, tell them put the money in my hand right now. Tell the promoter we need more seats, we just sold out all the floor seats.
Take me on a trip, I'd like to go someday. Take me to New York, I'd love to see LA. I really want to come kick it with you. You'll be my American boy. He said, hey sister, it's really nice to meet ya. I just met this 5'7" guy who's just my type. Like the way he's speaking, his confidence is peaking. Don't like his baggy jeans, but I like what's underneath him. And no, I ain't been to MIA. I heard the Cali never rains and New York's wide away. First let's see the West End, I'll show you to my brethren. I'm liking this American boy, American boy. Would you be my lover? Would you be mine? Would you be my lover? Would you be mine? Would you be my lover? Would you be my American boy? American boy. La 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 la. La 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 la.
This a number one, 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 this a number one champion sound.
I know really nice things. Really liking this boy. I know
this a number one champion sound.
I know really nice things. Really liking this boy. I know
this a number one, this a number one, this a number one champion sound.
I know really nice things. Really liking this boy. I know
this a number one champion sound.
I know really nice things. Really liking this boy. I know
this a number one, this a number one, this a number one champion sound.
Never knew how much I loved you. Never knew how much I cared. When you put your arms around me, I get a fever that's hard to bear. You give me fever when you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight, fever in the morning, fever all through the night. Sun lights up the daytime, moon lights up the night. I light up when you call my name. I know you're gonna treat me right. You give me fever when you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight, fever in the morning, fever all through the night. Captain Smith and Pocahontas had a very mad affair. When her daddy tried to kill him, she said, Daddy, don't you dare. He gives me fever with his kisses, fever when he holds me tight, fever, I'm his missus, so Daddy just treat him right. Juliet, she felt the same. When he put his arms around her, she said, Romy, baby, you're my flame. Now give me fever with your kisses, fever with a flaming youth, fever, oh, I'm on fire, fever, yeah, I burn for self. Now you've listened to my story. Here's the point that I have made. Men were made to give me fever. Well, be it Fahrenheit or centigrade, they give me fever when they kiss me, fever when they hold me tight, fever, oh, I'm on fire, fever all through the night, fever till you sizzle. What a lovely way to burn. Fever, I'm on fire. What a lovely way to burn. Fever, oh, till you sizzle. What a lovely way to burn. Fever, oh, I'm on fire.
Thank you very much. Woo! What a wonderful mix. Thank you, Tiff. Thank you for this interesting collage of plenty of sounds and music and words that are part of your research from the archive, I suppose. And I wonder if you would like to maybe speak a little bit more about the way you've worked in the archive and the way you've encountered it and how it came to this result.
I felt quite overwhelmed by the archive because there's a lot of information and a lot of things to take in, and majority of the archive was press releases or like of post shows, and so it was like a lot of paper and a lot of like physical things, which are like I found interesting. But then it made me think about shows that I've been to in person here, and like one show that came to mind was the R.I.P. Jermaine show that was like back in 2021, and that show struck me because it was like a focus of death but also celebration. And so for like this collage of like different sounds, I started off with like a lot of like church music and a lot of like religious kind of connotations, because that has like a strong connection to death in regards to, well, my own culture and stuff like that, like coming from Jamaica. But also there's link to like celebration in that, where we'll have like a 9-day kind of like celebration of that person that we've lost, and that includes like a lot of music. Hence why like I did like a lot of like dance hall and like reggae at the end and stuff like that. And I also realised that in relation back to the show, I think it was called like Dead Yard. There was like also like an open deck kind of session that they did, where it was like a two-part thing where they invited people to send in tracks or like voice notes of like in remembrance of someone that they've lost. And so that was like also like a mesh of different kind of like types of music and like memory that people had of that person that they previously lost. And so it was like either like joyous or just really sad. And I kind of like that kind of like mesh and like confusion that came along with all the tracks and like the podcasts that were released and stuff like that.
Yeah. In the show they say that it is really like a collective relationship towards death. And I think what you've done today with us, it's
it was a mix, a very much of a mix of stuff. And also I have got to admit, I wasn't too sure what songs were on there. So so I also had like a surprise of like rant, because it's I've labelled them wrong. So it was a random selection of songs which I just had on my USB, which reflected that, I guess, that mood or that session.
And there is also another show you mentioned earlier, and that's a show from 2021, also curated by Languid Hands, the curator fellowship that was here from 2020 till 2022. And I wonder if you have something to say about that, and if that also has like a proper connotation with the work you've done now.
Like that show, I also saw that in person. Oh my god, my head's like complete, but I forgot the name of the show actually.
It's Ajemu X Archival Sensoria.
So that for me, that also made me think about dance, because the show focuses on a lot of like black queer culture, and is filled with like loads of photographs and collected materials that the artists like included and stuff like that. And with that show, I felt like it was like it just for me connected to my own personal background, and I think that's why I resonated with it a lot, in the sense that I can see it in the it was in the archive, the physical archive at Cubitt as well, and then resonated with it because I saw it in person. I think I'm that sort of person who likes, or like who works with materials that I've seen before and able to connect with in some way. But yeah, that show was like more like photographic and object filled, and I think they also had like another sonic version of the show where they invited another artist. I can't remember the name of the artist, my bad, but to make a mix in reaction to the show, and the mix was like a lot of like soul, like R&B, and what reflected like the notion of that show.
I think in Ajamu's show there's also quite a lot of references to passion and intimacy and sex and desire. Pascal, you spoke quite a lot about Carol Bovey's exhibition, which very explicitly references sex and desire and relationships. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about that show and how it speaks to your own practice and research.
Yeah, well, so this show, I don't know much about The Joy of Sex itself, the book. I remember you said that your parents had it.
Yeah, I recognised that right away because my parents have it on their top shelf in the study, which is great.
But it's like this free love, like full of illustrations and photos and in exercises like the one I started with, and then presented in a kind of like alienated way, and in relation to lots of other different times. So yeah, I guess it was quite a clinical look at this moment of time of how sex was viewed. And then in terms of my own practice, I'm kind of the opposite in terms of like the erotic and the erotic charge, Audre Lorde's, the kind of uses of this life force is really like a pulse through the sculptures that I make. And it's warm and it is soft and embedded and subtle. So when the work's like erotic, it isn't not necessarily sexual, but it's just a certain texture. So I think they're totally different like interpretations of sex.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think in the Ajamu show as well, sex isn't explicitly referenced. It's a celebration of this in a queer sense. But yeah, the Carol Bovey was much more explicit, but also very poetic in her writings and the exercises like you're talking about. For both of you, I think literature and writing is quite a big part of your research process. And I was wondering if you could speak a bit about how that was working with writing in the archive, and how that helped to make the sound piece that you presented to us today.
Yeah, so I like in my practice personally, I do start off with written text and work from it, like even my own writings or from essays that relate in some way, and it comes up like I just come up with an idea. And a lot of the texts in the archive was mostly like that I read were mostly the press releases of previous shows, and I found it quite I don't know what the word is, but it was like an interesting experience just to see how other artists or like curators, I guess, describe the works of shows that I've never seen or like only seen could only see online, or like a lot of the shows that were in the archive you can't actually find them online, and there was only like the photograph image of like I guess one still like one shot like of the space of where it was. And I think that I found that quite like a interesting way where I felt somewhat close to the shows, in like even though I like because I just imagined what it would have been to be in that space and to walk around it and with just one image, I think. And I think for like the sound piece that I made, it was more like a reflection of an interest of dance, especially with like Linguid Hands, like their curational fellowship that they did here was a lot of like music, sonic bass integration within the shows, and I think it had like a lot of like dance references and dance culture, hence why it went into like a bit of like a mini techno set. But then I went into like drum and bass and then segued again into like whatever reggae or like dancehall, and it was all these mesh of different things that all come from one kind of like base, and that was like people just want to have fun and dance, you know. And yeah, I've sort of forgotten what the question was, but I think I've just segued.
No, it's still super interesting, don't worry.
Yeah.
This everything you said reminds me also of a person that is kind of a link between your work, I think, because you're both very interested in their practice, and it's Adjoa Arma, who is also an archivist, and she says that she's always working also with the idea of the fellow traveler, and asking herself always the question, who forms the ground in my thinking, actually, and she refers then to the ghost as a research participant. And I think like in both of your practices, you, by what you're influenced or by what inspires you, those are all, we could maybe see them all as all like plenty of little ghosts that are giving you some grounds to work further on. I don't know if you want to comment on that, both of you, or if you have, for example, one ghost that's always coming up.
Actually, like for me, I do like there's a word in Patois, doppy, which means ghost, and I've been researching a lot about a ghost or a doppy, and it's always like an evil spirit, a doppy, rather than like than something that is good in some way. And I used to be like really afraid of doppies and stuff. So there's like this thing where to keep them away, you have to turn your shirts inside out when you're sleeping in bed, so that they don't come and get you. And I used to do that quite a lot when I was a kid. And for me, linking back to the archive, I feel like going through those archival materials, it gave me a sense of like I was a ghost touching this past and trying to like invade that previous experience or like that previous past that I've never experienced, but I'm just looking around in it. Which, yeah, that's why I was like, oh, maybe I'm a ghost now, instead of, I don't know.
Yeah, of having a ghost
Yeah.
with you.
I got to speak with Adra, and she's incredible. And she brought up this bird called the sankofa. It's a Ghanaian bird, and it's like migratory bird which looks forward at the same time as looking backward, which kind of links back to the Angelus novus, which I mentioned. But yeah, I guess she, with her salmon archive, does that. Also Leonora Carrington, actually, this kind of eye which looks in and out at the same time. She's doing that in a sort of like reimagining the life she could have had if she grew up in Ghana through this archival imagery, because it was the same time as her childhood. But anyway, in terms of like the ghost in me, Archive Fever by Derrida, this idea that the archive is actually, maybe I'm summarizing too much, but it's a kind of like cemetery where you can get stuck and lost, and it's a bad place. And it's quite a maze, basically. And I really like this kind of sinister, ghostly aspect.
Yeah, it's actually, I've actually referenced Archive Fever quite a lot in my previous work, and it's interesting that we have so many like crossovers and like references and stuff, and I think that's quite like nice, like how you guys have brought us together, and I don't know, like for me, I always like think back to like the Trickster as well, and then that like Jean Fisher. Writing, was it the Trickster, the Troubadour, and like I'm really bad with names, but for me that's like another reference of like, in a sense, an like it's an archive. Like archive can be anything, and like sound is probably a pure way of archiving something, because you listen to it and you can't really alter it compared to like a physical piece of paper where you can eliminate or like change and take away, like you can black out stuff, and with a sound piece it's harder for you to like eliminate whatever's in it because it's already there, especially if it's live and it's like like right now it's like this is an archive which we can't necessarily change as much.
And I guess back to the Trickster is like my experience of the Trickster is interest in the clown, training in mime, this kind of body which is a vessel to tell a story. And in talking to Tiff and the way that you channel the Trickster in a totally different kind of decolonial way as well, where it's kind of it's an undermining character. And I guess this is, we're both navigating the archive in this mode. I had more to say, but I've drawn a blank.
Pascal, maybe you could tell us a bit about your work in the robotics archive, and how that connects to your work and how you found your experience of the archive here. And in particular, the book that, I forget her name now, Yasha Reichart. Totally not what I said, Yasha. That she wrote, which sequences, it was almost like a collage of a history of robotics in a way. And I'll leave the question there. I could go on. But if that's
I guess, yeah. So I work in a robotics archive, and it's a very kind of it's a very freeing archive in the way that it's a real mess. It's an organised mess, and there isn't a system of navigating it. So when I came to Cubitt, it's kind of a similar thing. Like, most things are tactile. There is an order, but you're free to use it in the way that you wish. And I think returning to Adwa, who is against this elite way of archiving, which is really inaccessible, I find my robotics one, Cubitt, and Adwa's really accessible, and there does need to be, and there already really is, an undoing of archiving practices.
Yeah, maybe we can actually speak also about your own projects with sounds, the other ones, especially the radio shows, and also the fact that now you're suddenly together in the same radio show, and that you've been often in touch on other projects, and that now it's like coming together in a way, and that just maybe say a couple of words about your own radio shows and your own mediums, and that you like to work with.
So I've got a radio show called The 19th, where I release a mix like every 19th day of the month, and I basically like collaborate with various artists who've never mixed before, and it's like sort of this crash course mix of like different songs that the artist that I've invited like sends me a playlist, and then I react to the playlist, and then we just like come together and do this like back-to-back session that varies in length, and it can go for like an hour to 2 hours or whatever, like depending on the person. And I've actually done a mix with Pascale at the early stages, and then like funny enough, Pascale's like invited me on her radio show, which you can say more about.
Yeah, it's a monthly or twice a month interview with artists, a kind of intimate conversation about yearnings, basically. But back to when I drew a blank, I just remembered what I was trying to say, is about like shyness, and the shyness is an aspect of the trickster and the clown, and I think shyness, I think me and Tiff are both quite shy sometimes, in the way that we express ourselves. Like when I interviewed you, it was actually the first time that we'd spoken about your work. So I just wanted to draw that connection. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, the reference to shyness. I mean, you both articulate your work very well, so it doesn't come across. But yeah, I think that's a really beautiful concept. Well, thank you both so much for joining us on the radio show. Before we head off, I'm just going to talk about some shows they've got coming up. So Pascale has curated Belly Talk for Collective Ending, which is going to be opening. When's that opening, Pascale? January 28th. January 28th. Head down to Collective Ending. And then Tiff has got a solo show, a public gallery, opening next May in 2023.
Woo! Thank you for listening. Thank you also, dear listeners, here in the in the space. Thank you, Pascal and Tiff. It was amazing. This was Sounding the Archive, and see you soon for another episode. Bye bye, everyone. Thank you.